Tiffany Henyard, once seen as a rising star in Illinois politics, now finds herself in the midst of a dramatic fall from grace. With mounting legal troubles, accusations of illegal appointments, and a humiliating loss in a key Democratic caucus, Henyard's political career is rapidly crumbling. The controversy surrounding her administration, ranging from claims of vote suppression to rule-bending, has taken center stage, further eroding her once unassailable position. On a chilly December evening, hundreds braved the cold in Homewood, Illinois, gathering outside the Homewood Flossmoor Park District Auditorium. This was no ordinary event. It marked the first Thorne Township Democratic caucus in over 30 years, with stakes higher than ever. Inside, a tense political atmosphere dominated as locals, political insiders, and spectators packed the room, all eager to witness what would soon become a pivotal moment in the township's history. At the heart of it all stood Tiffany Henyard, the embattled mayor and township supervisor whose career was hanging in the balance. Dressed in a bold pink pantsuit, Henyard made her entrance with a sense of confidence and defiance. But as the evening unfolded, it was clear that the cracks in her political facade were beginning to show. Known for her dramatic flair, Henyard was accused of vote suppression and manipulating the caucus process. Her most vocal accusation was aimed at State Senator Napoleon Harris, who also headed the Thorne Township Democratic Committee. Henyard alleged that Harris had rigged the event against her, blocking her supporters from participating, allowing only his allies to mentor new participants, and essentially steering the process in his favor. Despite her accusations, the caucus continued, and Henyard's defeat was swift and crushing. In a unanimous vote that took only 7 minutes, she lost the party's nomination for township supervisor. The result was as humiliating as it was swift. Her political empire was dismantled in a matter of moments. The room erupted in cheers and chants as Henyard's fate was sealed, with some even breaking into a customary farewell song. Shaken, visibly frustrated, Henyard left the auditorium hastily, vowing to sue everyone involved in the process.
Wow, it's like, grassroots. It was organic when a lot of this thing started at the township, where the people were...
The air was thick with excitement as nearly 600 people packed the auditorium for the long-awaited Thorne Township Democratic Caucus, an event that hadn't occurred in over 30 years. The atmosphere was upbeat, especially among the supporters of Thorne Township Democratic Committee head and State Senator Napoleon Harris, who arrived early to claim seats, creating a palpable sense of unity and enthusiasm. However, the mood quickly shifted when Mayor Tiffany Henyard, the controversial and embattled leader of Dalton, entered the scene. Known for her typically calm demeanor, Henyard was visibly furious as she made her way into the room. Her supporters, who had arrived late by bus, only added to her frustration. With a voice that echoed through the auditorium, Henyard launched into accusations of injustice, declaring that the striking pink suit she wore was a symbolic statement against the manipulation she was about to face. What had been an exciting room now became charged with tension as Henyard directly attacked what she claimed was a deliberate attempt to sabotage her campaign. Her accusations turned the event into a verbal battleground. Henyard charged that the caucus, which had been meticulously planned by Harris's camp, was an orchestrated effort to undermine her. She accused Harris of systematically excluding her supporters and rigging the process in his favor. Henyard claimed the caucus had been rigged from the start, with Harris ensuring that only his loyalists were allowed to participate. Despite Henyard's allegations, the event organizers insisted that the caucus was being conducted according to the rules, with attendees already present in the auditorium long before Henyard's late arrival. Tension in the room reached a boiling point when Henyard pointed to last-minute rule changes, arguing that they invalidated her participation. She cited technicalities, such as the absence of a professional assessor to oversee the event, as evidence that the process had been deliberately manipulated to disadvantage her. But her complaints fell on deaf ears as the caucus continued. Henyard's frustration mounted, but the reality of her diminishing political influence became undeniable. What had once been a crucial moment for her to solidify her power now became the setting for her public defeat. When the results of the caucus were announced, Harris's camp emerged victorious. The crowd erupted in applause, celebrating the outcome with a fervor that contrasted sharply with Henyard's visible distress. In a symbolic act of disapproval, spectators joyfully sang, "Na, na, 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 hey, 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 goodbye," mocking Henyard's defeat. The public spectacle was a harsh reminder of the dramatic shift in public opinion against her, as her influence seemed to have eroded completely. What had once been a promising political career now appeared to be on the verge of collapse. Henyard was forced to confront the painful reality that her leadership was no longer welcomed, marking a turning point in the township's political landscape. The defeat, though not entirely unexpected given her controversial tenure, was a devastating blow for Henyard, whose once unstoppable rise had now come crashing down. Tiffany Henyard once seemed poised for success as Thorne Township supervisor, a role that came with one of the most lucrative local government salaries in Illinois, earning over $200,000 annually. It was a figure that reflected her status and influence in the region. However, Henyard's tenure as supervisor was marred by accusations of corruption, careless spending, and an overbearing, controlling leadership style. Her administration became a chaotic case study in mismanagement, leaving frustrated residents and officials clamoring for change. Under Henyard's leadership, township meetings became notorious for devolving into heated arguments, often disrupted by raised voices and the frequent absence of trustees who failed to attend sessions. Critics argued that Henyard had turned public funds into her personal piggy bank, splurging on lavish dinners, extravagant travel, and even an $85,000 performance that many viewed as a complete waste of taxpayer money. The performance, attended by only a few, stood as one of the most glaring examples of Henyard's misguided priorities. While the town's finances were in dire need of attention, Henyard seemed more focused on self-promotion than addressing the pressing issues facing her constituents. Her administration failed to provide necessary transparency and accountability, only fueling accusations of dysfunction and mismanagement. As her term wore on, Henyard's leadership became increasingly defined by scandals, with allegations of financial mismanagement and the misuse of public funds casting a long shadow over her administration. The ongoing investigations into her conduct, coupled with a looming FBI probe into potential criminal activities, only deepened public mistrust in her leadership. Rather than acknowledging her mistakes and addressing the growing concerns, Henyard doubled down, portraying herself as the victim of political sabotage. She attempted to shift the narrative, painting herself as a determined figure fighting against adversity. But this image did little to sway the growing tide of public discontent. In a final attempt to salvage her reputation, Henyard erected billboards across Dalton emblazoned with slogans like "The People's Choice" and "Keeping My Promises." But these messages were largely dismissed as hollow platitudes. Locals, TTs, saw them as nothing more than self-serving distractions from the real issues at hand. Instead of focusing on Dalton's crippling debt and deteriorating infrastructure, Henyard's attention remained firmly on self-promotion. This move only deepened the divide between her and the people she was supposed to serve. Public dissatisfaction with her administration grew as critics argued that she had failed to provide even basic leadership. Under her watch, the community's financial stability steadily declined, and taxpayers were left footing the bill for her lavish expenses. Henyard's failure to address these urgent issues left Dalton's residents feeling abandoned, alienated, and distrustful of their local government. What was once a symbol of ambition and political promise now seemed like an unraveling mess. Henyard's political career, once filled with hope, was now hanging by a thread. The financial troubles that plagued Dalton were a glaring example of Henyard's misplaced priorities. While the town faced mounting debt and deteriorating infrastructure, Henyard continued to focus on extravagant expenditures and self-promotion. The $85,000 performance became a flashpoint for public outrage, highlighting the disconnect between her leadership and the needs of her constituents. Amid these growing challenges, Henyard's attempts to present herself as a devoted public servant fell flat. Her claims of being a victim of political rivalry did little to calm the storm of public criticism. Instead of addressing the community's needs, she seemed more focused on defending her tarnished reputation, even as the town's finances spiraled out of control. By the time of the Democratic caucus, Henyard's political trajectory had already been set in motion. Her diminishing popularity, combined with growing public dissatisfaction, left her vulnerable. Henyard's accusations that Senator Harris had manipulated the caucus process to eliminate her were met with skepticism by many, who saw her defeat as the inevitable result of her declining power. Harris, for his part, insisted that the caucus had been conducted fairly, and that Henyard's failure to secure the nomination was simply the outcome of her own poor leadership and dwindling popularity. The results of the caucus were a resounding rejection of Henyard's re-election campaign. Her political influence, even among the most loyal Democratic supporters, had been shattered. The outcome was a clear sign that Henyard's time as a political force had come to an end, and that Thorne Township was ready for new leadership. Tiffany Henyard, once a rising star in Illinois politics, now faces the bitter reality of her dramatic political collapse. The political landscape of Thorne Township has been irrevocably changed, with Henyard's fall from grace serving as a stark reminder of how quickly power can slip away and how the desires of the people ultimately shape political history. What was supposed to be a period of reform and promise for Thorne Township has instead turned into a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition, financial mismanagement, and a lack of accountability. Henyard's rise and subsequent downfall as the former mayor of Dalton and township supervisor has been a long time coming. Once seen as a fresh face in local politics, her initial appeal lay in her promise to restore integrity and transparency to a government marred by dysfunction. However, as her tenure wore on, Henyard's administration became plagued with accusations of financial mismanagement, questionable hiring practices, and a disregard for the public trust. Henyard's early days in office had painted the picture of a determined leader, intent on tackling corruption and improving the lives of Dalton's residents. But as time passed, it became clear that she had begun prioritizing her own interests over those of the community. What was once described as a focused, ambitious leadership style soon devolved into a chaotic spectacle of blame-shifting, finger-pointing, and erratic decision-making. Her administration became marked by lavish expenditures, a lack of transparency, and a hostile work environment that alienated many colleagues and constituents. Perhaps the most damning aspect of Henyard's tenure was her handling of finances. Investigations revealed that she spent over $100,000 on travel and fine dining, while programs designed to support the elderly and youth, two vital groups for Dalton, remained underfunded. Even worse, Henyard was found to have used public funds on personal luxuries, including extravagant shopping sprees and lavish dinners. These revelations sparked widespread outrage, particularly given Dalton's ongoing struggles with debt and deteriorating infrastructure. The public's anger boiled over when it was discovered that Henyard had used township resources, such as buses, to transport supporters to a Democratic caucus, a move many considered unethical and a blatant abuse of taxpayer money for personal gain. Despite the mounting pressure, Henyard continued to deny any wrongdoing, framing herself as a victim of a politically motivated smear campaign. She often dismissed accusations of financial mismanagement, claiming that they were the result of political opponents trying to undermine her. Her defense, insisting that her actions were within the bounds of the law, did little to reassure the public or quell the growing distrust in her leadership. Many saw this as an attempt to deflect responsibility and distract from the real issues at hand. As her political problems deepened, Henyard launched several high-profile attempts to salvage her reputation. She put up billboards across Dalton with slogans like "The People's Choice" and "Keeping My Promises." But these gestures were largely seen as empty and self-serving distractions from the growing scandals surrounding her administration. Critics argued that if Henyard truly cared about Dalton's future, she would have focused on solving the town's financial troubles instead of continuing her self-promotion. Her handling of the Thorne Township Democratic caucus was widely criticized. What was supposed to be a decisive moment for Henyard to secure her political future turned into a logistical disaster. Many of her supporters, including elderly residents, arrived late and faced difficulties entering the venue. The disarray underscored Henyard's inability to manage even the most basic aspects of governance. Speculation has been rife that Tiffany Henyard could soon face criminal charges, and many in the community are now questioning if she can ever recover from the scandal that has completely derailed her political career. Henyard's critics, including members of the Thorne Township Democratic Committee, have been vocal in condemning her leadership, arguing that she prioritized her personal interests over the well-being of the community. This failure to focus on Dalton's needs is widely seen as the primary factor behind her political collapse. Even Henyard's remaining supporters, who once staunchly defended her, began to waver. Some questioned whether she could ever rebound from the growing list of scandals and legal battles that now define her career. The ongoing investigation into her financial dealings only deepened suspicions about her administration. Among the EEAE's most shocking revelations was her $43,000 Amazon spree in a single day, an expense that raised eyebrows across the community and further tarnished her image as a public servant. As if that wasn't enough, the county court reversed part of her accumulated debt, casting even more doubt on her financial management. Despite the overwhelming evidence of her mismanagement, Henyard continued to deny any wrongdoing, insisting that all of her actions were above board and that the accusations against her were politically motivated. But her defense, once again, was increasingly viewed as nothing more than an attempt to deflect attention from her mounting scandals. As tensions reached a boiling point, Henyard issued a 30-day provisional appointment in a desperate attempt to consolidate her power. However, by this point, the damage to her reputation was irreversible. Her refusal to accept accountability, combined with her insistence on framing herself as the victim, only served to deepen the public's frustration. Even as she continued to fight legal battles and face the possibility of criminal charges, the trust of Dalton's residents appeared permanently shattered. Division within Dalton grew more pronounced as Henyard's remaining supporters continued to defend her, claiming that her opponents were unfairly targeting her. But these voices grew quieter as more and more residents lost faith in her ability to lead. The growing tide of public disillusionment seemed unstoppable, and Henyard's political career appeared to be in free fall. In a dramatic twist, some of Henyard's most vocal defenders began to distance themselves from her, acknowledging that her leadership had been ineffective and that her actions had only harmed Dalton's future. One observer put it bluntly, You can only blame others for so long. Eventually, you have to take responsibility for your actions. As the community waited to see what would become of Henyard's political future, many began to wonder if the controversies surrounding her were a sign of something deeper. Had Dalton become so entrenched in political theater and personal gain that it couldn't recover from the damage caused by Henyard's leadership? Or could her fall from grace serve as a wake-up call for a new generation of leaders? The rise and fall of Tiffany Henyard is a powerful reminder of the consequences of corruption and the vital importance of accountability in leadership. Her story illustrates how quickly public trust can erode when elected officials prioritize personal ambition over the welfare of the community. Henyard's downfall serves as a cautionary tale for anyone seeking political power without integrity, transparency, and a true commitment to serving the people. Even the most promising political careers can collapse under the weight of mismanagement and ethical lapses. As the fallout from her administration continues to unfold, the future of Dalton remains uncertain. Many hope that the upheaval caused by Henyard's controversies will spark much-needed change in Thorne Township. Others, however, remain skeptical, unsure if anyone, including Henyard's political rivals, can bring about the meaningful reform that the town desperately needs. For now, the story of Tiffany Henyard's rise and fall will serve as a potent reminder of the fragility of political careers and the need for leaders who are genuinely committed to serving the public good. Whether Henyard can mount a successful comeback, or if her political career is permanently over, remains to be seen. But one thing is clear: the consequences of her actions will linger for years to come, leaving an indelible mark on the history of Thorne Township.